When I talked about working environments a couple of weeks back, I mentioned freelance work. So I want to talk about it in a little more depth today. Freelance means you're not hired as a full-time employee. Now, I also realize a bunch of you have done freelance already. I'm talking about it more as your career progresses. So when you're freelance, you're working for a company either in their office or from home on a temporary contract or agreement, either full or part-time, or you have a project that you will complete away from an office, either in your own studio or your own kitchen in one of those shared space offices. You can be hired through word of mouth, through your personal network, through an agency from one of your previous jobs, through an online freelance posting site. A client you worked with can recommend you to someone else. You can also directly approach studios or art departments and give them your website, and they can contact you. You might meet with them and they might hire you for a short-term gig when some work arises. You can be hired by your next door neighbor to do a wedding invitation, or the corner bodega to do a logo. Freelance can come from anywhere. You can do freelance while you're working full-time, in the evenings and on the weekend. A lot of designers supplement their income this way. Often, when you're just starting out, you get hired for a pretty low salary. Freelance can make up the difference. I know some of you want to have a freelance career. When I started out, that's what I wanted. It's that freedom to not be tied down to one employer and one working environment. And you have the kind of flexibility to take on different kinds of jobs, and it's very enticing. Whether you want a freelance career or not, often when you leave school and you're looking for work, freelance can be what naturally comes up. Short-term jobs, small projects with fairly low pay, and no job guarantees. This is pretty normal. Working through a job agency is a great way to get your foot in the door. They will send you on what are essentially freelance jobs, but you will be paid through the agency. And you will tend not to be paid as much, and you quickly become aware of a glass ceiling for the kind of money you're making, particularly when you're younger and you don't have so much experience. You do tend to be paid on time, though, and that's actually a really good thing. The upside is that you don't have to do the negotiation. They figure it all out for you. You just turn up for the job and do the work. However, the full-timers tend to do better than you, certainly in the early phase of your career. If you are full-time, you get health insurance, possibly, or partial health insurance, paid vacations, and as a freelancer, you will not. But a job agency is also a good way to start. And if you become a regular at one of these agencies, sometimes the agency itself will offer health insurance and paid vacations. I mean, it's pretty minimal, but it's better than nothing. You will all most likely work freelance at one point or another in your career. The question here is, do you want to be a full-time freelance? So here's some minuses. If you're working full-time for a company, they will send you on training courses to learn new software and software updates. As a freelance, you take that time out of your own life with no pay. You have weeks with no work and the rent or the mortgage is due. You spend a lot of time looking for work, going to industry functions, making contacts, all of which is necessary and often fun, but it's unpaid. It can feel like you have a lot of freedom, but remember, you're not just your own boss. You're also your own employee, and employees can be difficult to manage. It's a good idea to have a conversation with yourself. Would you hire you? Would you want you to be your boss? Would you want you working for you? Would you want to be taking orders from you? Would you be fair to you? Would you do the work you asked you to do in a timely and professional manner? Freelancing on your own requires a different kind of discipline. Freelance can also get lonely. COVID gave you a taste of this, and doing everything from home can be stifling. Honestly, a lot of full-time jobs are like this too now. If you can, try to get into a situation where you're at least going into the office sometimes, because otherwise you can go crazy. The other option is you can freelance in a shared workspace, just so that you're out in the world and you're talking to other people. You're not just focused on the screen all the time. So here are some pluses on freelancing. Freelance can also be incredibly freeing. You can work on different kinds of projects for different kinds of companies. You can broaden your design network, really get to know what is going on in other parts of the industry. If you're a go-getter, this can be lucrative and fun. Being charming helps a lot too, so you can work on your charm. After working full-time for a number of years, I turned freelance. I found that I generally preferred freelance to being a full-time employee. At various points, I had regular clients. For instance, I did a lot of work on magazines back before the internet took over from print publications in a big way. When I lived in London, workers were given generous vacations. So that means they would need freelancers to cover those vacations. I would do regular stints at different magazines where I would go in and take the place of the person on holiday. I worked on lots of different magazines. It was fun, but if the workplace was unfriendly, I wasn't stuck there. When I got back to New York, I had a series of regular clients. The cat is making a lot of noise. I hope it isn't coming through. When I got back to New York, I had a series of regular clients. I did a magazine that came out twice a year, another one that came out 4 times a year. I had one client that paid me a stipend every month for different kinds of marketing materials like brochures and emails. And along the way, I had little one-off projects. These were, for the most part, working from home. I wasn't working for any of them full-time, but I could count on some of them for a regular amount of work. As the years went by, I started supplementing this with part-time teaching. Teaching, again, does not pay a lot, but it has helped me with a small but steady income during the ups and downs of the economy. I also gained access to half-decent health care, very important. And a big plus has been keeping in touch with younger designers and professional colleagues. And by the way, it's also a lot of fun. City Tech frequently hires former students in the ComD department to teach, generally part-time, which is kind of the fun part, the teaching part, as opposed to all the admin. So it's a nice thing to do in addition to other work that you're doing. So keep that in mind if this is something that interests you. You get in touch once you've had some years of experience under your belt and you've got something to say to the next generation of designers. For me, freelance has kind of been a struggle. I never really made a big salary. I've never really been an office person, but I'm not particularly outgoing. And I think that if I was a more outgoing person, I would have gotten more work, just because I'd be out there being more charming more often. It has been worth the struggle for me to have that freedom and flexibility in my life. So a smart thing to do is not depend on just one client. Always be on the lookout for new opportunities and try and find several regular clients, even if they don't pay very much. Having something regular makes everything a lot easier. That was my experience. But that's not the same for everyone. If you specialize in a particular area of software like After Effects or Adobe Premiere, or you're in a particular genre of design like retail or sports or something, or you're particularly an advertising person, you can become someone who's highly in demand in that particular area. And that can lead to lots of freelance work, especially if you work to expand your network and keep in touch with people. Email, text. If you want to follow a full-time freelance route, I recommend that you spend some time as a full-timer to get to know the demands of the industry, make lots of contacts, and develop your own skills to the point where everyone wants you to work for them. So, some general advice about freelance work. As in this class, with freelance, communication is paramount. I've spent a lot of years as a freelance. If you're not in the company, you're not privy to office politics and the problems in the company and who's getting fired and who can't stand somebody. You don't know all that stuff. And those people, the good, the bad, and the ugly, they're your conduit to the client, and your client is the company. So no matter who you're talking to, You want to be reliable and friendly and helpful and thinking big picture and letting everyone know where you are with your projects and what ideas you have for whatever they're asking for. It's also helpful if you can get like a friend or make a friend in the company who can keep you up to date with any issues in the company. Like if you're losing a client or you're gaining a client, you can get the skinny on that before it becomes a big deal. It's hard when you're doing it as a freelance because you can get fired at any time and you'll never know the reason why. So communicate as much as possible, be a nice person. That makes you somebody that they really want to have in their office sphere, as opposed to somebody, oh, she's such a pain in the neck. I don't want to have to deal with her anymore. You don't want to be that pain in the neck. You want to be somebody reliable. So treat everyone you talk to respectfully. They're your contact with the company, from the IT person, the secretary, the big boss, the other designers, the client contact people, all those guys. They want to depend on you as someone who can make their life easier. The worst thing you can do is not respond to Slack messages or emails or texts or phone calls. The best thing you can do is contact them before they have to contact you. If they're thinking, what's going on with Louise's project, they need to go to their inbox and find my message waiting for them before they even have to try and email me. I've contacted them and said, this is where we are, and this is where we're going, and this is my timeline. They already know that before they even talk to you. They don't need to know about your problems. They don't need to know about taking your cat to the vet, or the washing machine is broken, or you're breaking up with your boyfriend. Keep your emails or texts just a report about their project. Make it about them, not making about you. It's all about their view of your particular working relationship. You're there to give them peace of mind, help them finish their projects on time, not create anxiety. So one time, I was right on a deadline. This huge, millions of magazines were about to get printed, and my computer died, and it was awful. And I hadn't backed it up. That was the key thing. I hadn't backed it up. Always back up your work. So I raced down to the computer shop, but I didn't tell my boss. Raced down to the computer shop, said, whatever it is, do it as quickly as possible. I'm on deadline. Here's all the money you need. Take care of it. They said, yeah, fine. We managed to get all your work off it, and here's a working computer you can do. And then I went back and I got the project and I backed everything up, and then I finished everything. And then after the magazine had gone to press, I said, a week ago, my computer died. I told him. I didn't want to lie to him. I just didn't want to tell him right away to wind him up. I didn't want to give him anxiety. So I said, the computer died, but I took it to the computer shop and everything was fine. But I didn't want to tell you until after the magazine had gone to press. And I also didn't want to bullshit you. So that's an example of not giving him anxiety, but also taking care of the problem. If I had completely died, then I never would have worked for him again. So I was lucky. I should have backed up my work. So if you do have a problem that you can't fix, it doesn't need to be something as drastic as the entire project disappearing. But you say, the client has asked for this, but the only photos I have is this. So what am I supposed to do about it? You don't say, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. You solve this problem for me. You say, what I suggest is that we go to this other agency, and it'll be a little bit more expensive, but it'll be worth it because it'll look better. In other words, you present the problem and the solution. So-and-so won't get back to me. I suggest that we use so-and-so instead. So you present the problem and the solution. Now, chances are they won't go for your solution. However, it shows that you're thinking it through and you're not just sort of saying, you sort out my life. You're part of the team and you're trying to make everything work. So digital messages, email, text, Slack, whatever, they can read kind of starkly. In that, I mean, they can sound kind of grouchy without meaning to. So be friendlier than you think you have to be. They can't hear your tone of voice. Make sure your messages cannot be misread. Keep humor to a minimum unless you know the person well, because sometimes it can sound really insulting. when you're just kind of joking around. If they don't know you, they don't know your sense of humor. So minimize. I have personal experience of this. I met my husband through a newspaper ad. This was way back before dating apps existed. So he answered 2 ads. He's a journalist. He's a very good writer. He wrote 2 similar letters to me and another person. I thought his letter was hilarious, and I answered him back. And long story short, we've been together for almost 25 years. Nice. The recipient of the other letter wrote back to him and said, "I've never been so insulted in my life. Please never contact me again." We both read his humor in a different way, fortunately for me. But this was not a professional situation. This was a personal situation. I think he dodged a bullet there. But, so be careful with your communications. In a professional setting, you want to be clear and friendly, no more, no less. If you want to be a full-time freelance, it's a really good idea to save up 6 months of bills in your bank account before you start. This is what you will call on to pay the bills when you can't find work. It's actually a good idea for all of us to have a 3-month emergency fund saved up. Honestly, 6 months is better, but for freelance, it definitely should be 6 months. The design world is unpredictable, and even solid full-time jobs can disappear in a rocky economic environment. This isn't said to scare you. It's just a way of covering yourself against unexpected situations. Unexpected situations can be, your car breaks down. You got to pay $500 to replace the whatever it is. Your mother gets kicked out of her house. She's got to come live with you. You got to buy a bed for her to sleep in. Wacky stuff can happen. COVID can happen. All of a sudden, you don't have a job anymore. I need 6 months worth of bills while I figure out how on earth I'm going to deal with this. If you have that, people that prepare in advance are in a much better situation. And it also makes you a sort of more relaxed and happy person to be around as a freelance, because a lot of freelancers are like, "Oh no, am I going to get more work? Eek, eesh." So you want to have a happier life, and you have that emergency fund, and you will present yourself as a better person, and you also just be happier. So contracts. If you freelance through an agency, they handle your payments and negotiate your salary and job description. If you get a job on your own, it's a great idea to provide a contract that lays out your responsibilities and how much you will be paid. You can get paid in an agreed full amount, or you can give them an hourly rate. The job description is really important. If they want a social media campaign, that's great, but what does that include? 3 ads, 6 ads. Do you provide the photography? Will there be video or animation involved? And what is the timeline for this? When is this all going to be due? Everything should be specified in the contract. Then it's a good idea to put a sentence like, additional work will be billed at $60 an hour, or whatever you're going to charge. Because often a client will start to add extra work. So, could you just do this thing, and you just add another banner and all that sort of stuff. So if you're going to do that, then it's $60 for an hour's worth of banner design. If you have an agreement in writing beforehand, you have a basis for sending them an invoice for the extra work. Having stuff in writing makes it clear to everyone what you need to do and when it needs to be completed. Everyone knows what to expect and when, and there's less confusion. It also makes it a lot easier to get paid. I think legally they have a month to pay you. After that, you can harass them. I wouldn't harass them before that month is up, though. A quick word about social media. Please don't badmouth people on social media. Even if your account is private, this stuff gets around. A couple years ago, there was a woman who was going to be hired to be the editor of Teen Vogue. And she was really young, and it was a really good gig. Somebody found some snarky kind of anti-Semitic, homophobic tweets she made when she was 17 years old. At age 25, she was removed from the job before she started. Now, 17 years old, everyone's stupid when they're 17. Everyone says stupid things. But that's the reality we live in now. They can go back to all the idiotic things you did when you were young and, finding yourself. So a good rule of thumb is just never to badmouth people. In terms of your politics, even then, you don't want to just pile in on people and say mean things about people personally if you can possibly avoid it, because the stuff comes back to haunt you. When I was younger, this kind of thing didn't exist unless, somebody was holding up a microphone to you, which they never did. But here it's like we all walk around in this world where there's cameras and microphones on us all the time. It's bizarre. I mean, it's normal for you guys. You grew up this way. But this kind of stuff can haunt you, and it can haunt you professionally. So just don't do it. We have about 6 or 7 weeks till the end of the semester. Maybe it's like 6 when you count the week off for Thanksgiving. So far, we're doing pretty good. The goal is to have your project work finished by Thanksgiving. Ideally, you'll have your other assignments also done by Thanksgiving. That'll make your Thanksgiving week a lot calmer and more relaxed. So that would be the event essay, the interview practice, the proofing each other's resume and cover letters and business cards and so forth. So I'll get all of that done by Thanksgiving. And then after Thanksgiving, our focus will be on getting our websites really beautiful and clean and organized and properly laid out, but also a portfolio PDF. So you have those two options to look at a portfolio PDF or a website. So I want to emphasize something. Students walk out of City Tech all the time and get a job in our industry. Like I said before, we're going up against students from Pratt and Parsons and SVA. Even so, a solid portfolio will get you a job. A great portfolio will get you a better job. If a creative director is looking at 2 portfolios, one from CUNY, another from Pratt, chances are they're going to be prejudiced in favor of Pratt. But ultimately, that great portfolio will win the day. You guys are fully capable of going toe-to-toe with the likes of Pratt, but it needs to show in your portfolio. So please put that extra effort in to make your portfolio look spectacular, not just good. It's got to be great. I'll talk to you on Sunday and Monday.